I never thought I'd be judged for the very thing I was afraid of being judged for. If you've ever felt that pit in your stomach when someone makes an assumption about you that cuts deep, this story might just resonate with your soul. Before we dive in, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. Stories like these don't often get told, but they need to be heard. James stared at his reflection in the restaurant bathroom mirror, his hands gripping the edge of the sink. The date had been going perfectly until 5 minutes ago. 3 years since Sarah's death, 3 years of raising Emma alone, 3 years of putting his own life on hold, and the first woman he'd connected with had just told him he could walk away because she was a single mom. The irony wasn't lost on him. He splashed cold water on his face, wondering if he should take her up on the offer. Rewind to 6 hours earlier. James stood in his bedroom, holding up 2 different shirts while his 7-year-old daughter Emma sat cross-legged on his bed, her critical eye narrowed in concentration. "The blue one, Daddy. It makes your eyes pop," she said with the confidence of a tiny fashion consultant. "Pop? Where did you learn that?" James laughed, slipping the blue button-down off its hanger. "Aunt Melissa says it all the time." "Are you nervous?" Emma tilted her head, her brown curls, so like her mother's, falling across her shoulder. James paused. He'd never hidden his feelings from Emma, not even in the darkest days after Sarah's accident. "Yeah, pumpkin. I am." "Don't be. You're the best daddy in the world. And if she doesn't see that, she's just silly." James knelt down and hugged his daughter, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise," Emma said with a solemn nod. "Mommy used to say I was an old soul." The mention of Sarah didn't sting as much as it once had. Now it was a gentle ache, a reminder of what they'd lost but also what they'd had. "Aunt Melissa will be here in 10 minutes. Did you pack Mr. Snuggles?" James asked, referring to the well-worn teddy bear Emma couldn't sleep without. "Yep. And my book and my special toothbrush and extra socks because Aunt Melissa's house is always cold." James smiled. Emma's meticulous packing was another trait she'd inherited from Sarah. The doorbell rang, and Emma raced downstairs, her excitement palpable. James followed, adjusting his collar one last time. Melissa, Sarah's younger sister, stood at the door with open arms as Emma launched herself forward. "There's my favorite niece." "I'm your only niece," Emma giggled, a line that had become their ritual greeting. Melissa looked up at James, her eyes, so similar to Sarah's, twinkling with approval. "Well, don't you clean up nice? Olivia won't know what hit her." James felt his cheeks warm. "It's just coffee." That turned into dinner, Melissa winked. The first step back into the world. Sarah would be proud. The mention of his late wife from Melissa always felt right, like permission to move forward. "Thanks for watching, Emma." "Are you kidding? We have a whole night of nail painting and cookie baking planned." "Right, Em?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "And Aunt Melissa said we might watch a movie that's PG-13. PG-13, Melissa corrected with a laugh. "And I said we'd see." James raised an eyebrow but didn't object. Melissa had been their rock these past 3 years. She deserved some aunt privileges. After a flurry of goodbyes and one last hug from Emma, James found himself driving to Riverstone Cafe, his heart hammering against his ribs. He hadn't been on a date since college. He and Sarah had been high school sweethearts, no awkward first dates, no getting to know you small talk. Just a lifetime of shared memories that had been cut tragically short. Olivia was already seated when he arrived, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked up from her phone and smiled, and James felt something stir inside him, something he thought had died with Sarah. "You found it," she said as he approached. "Hard to miss." "It's the only cafe with a literal river stone out front," James replied, immediately regretting his attempt at humor. But Olivia laughed, a genuine sound that put him at ease. I've always wondered if they put the stone there because of the name, or named it after the stone was discovered. Life's great mysteries, James said, sliding into the seat across from her. The conversation flowed easily after that. Olivia was a landscape architect who had moved to town 6 months ago for a major park renovation project. They'd met when James, who worked in IT, had been called to fix her company's network issues. "I still can't believe you got our entire system back up in under an hour," Olivia said, stirring her latte. "Our last IT guy would have taken days and charged us triple." "Just doing my job," James shrugged, but he was pleased. "Though I admit, I might have worked a little faster knowing you were waiting." Olivia's eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. "So you noticed me before I slipped you my number?" "Hard not to," James admitted. "You were the only person in the office who offered me coffee and didn't act like the network crashing was somehow my personal fault." They talked about their favorite hiking trails, discovered a mutual love for obscure indie films, and debated the merits of various pizza toppings. When Olivia suggested they continue their conversation over dinner at the Italian restaurant next door, James didn't hesitate. Over pasta and wine, the conversation deepened. James found himself sharing stories about his childhood, his career aspirations, his love of photography, a hobby he'd neglected since becoming a single parent. "You should pick it up again," Olivia encouraged. "What's stopping you?" James hesitated. He hadn't mentioned Emma yet. Not because he was hiding her existence, but because talking about his daughter meant talking about Sarah, about loss, about the complexities of his life. It wasn't first date material. But Olivia's question opened the door. "Time, mostly," he said carefully. "Between work and raising my daughter, there aren't many hours left in the day." Olivia's expression shifted slightly, but she recovered quickly. "You have a daughter? How old?" "Emma. She's 7. Smart as a whip and twice as sharp," James said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "And her mother?" Olivia asked, her tone casual but her eyes watchful. James took a deep breath. "Sarah passed away 3 years ago. Car accident." Olivia's face softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry, James. That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was. Still is, sometimes. But Emma and we're doing okay." He was surprised by how easy it was to say those words to Olivia, and even more surprised to realize they were true. Olivia nodded, then seemed to make a decision. She set down her wine glass and looked directly at James. "Look, should be upfront with you. You can leave if you want to after I tell you this. I'm a single mom too." James blinked, processing her words. "You, what?" "I have a son. Noah. He's 6. Olivia's chin lifted slightly, as if bracing for rejection. "His father isn't in the picture. Never has been. So if that's a deal-breaker for you, I understand. You can leave. I'm a single mom, and I know that's a lot for some people." The irony of the situation hit James like a wave. Here he was, worried about revealing his own single-parent status, and Olivia had been harboring the same concern. He felt a bubble of laughter rise in his chest, not from humor but from relief. "Why would I leave?" he asked, genuinely confused. Olivia's expression was guarded. "Because most men do. They hear, single mom, and see baggage, complications, another man's child. I've learned it's better to put it out there early." James shook his head, a smile spreading across his face. "Olivia, I just told you I'm a single dad. Did you miss that part?" "No, but," she paused, realization dawning. "It's different for men, isn't it? Single dads are seen as heroes. Single moms are seen as, I don't know, damaged goods?" The unfairness of her words struck James. He thought of the judgment he'd faced, the assumptions people made about his competence as a parent, the pitying looks, the well-meaning but condescending advice. "It's not different," he said quietly. "At least, it shouldn't be. We're both just doing our best for our kids." Olivia studied him for a long moment, as if searching for insincerity. Finding none, she relaxed visibly. "So you're not running for the hills?" "Only if you're coming with me," James replied. "I hear the hills have great views for photography." That earned him another genuine laugh, and the tension dissolved. "Tell me about Emma," Olivia said, leaning forward with interest. And so James did. He told her about Emma's passion for space, her collection of rocks that she insisted were meteorites, her ability to recite all the planets and their moons. He showed her pictures, Emma missing her front teeth, Emma in her Halloween costume as Marie Curie, not a princess, Daddy, a scientist, Emma asleep surrounded by books. In turn, Olivia shared stories about Noah, his obsession with dinosaurs, his surprising talent for baking, his shy nature that bloomed into confidence once he trusted you. She showed James pictures of a serious-looking boy with his mother's dark eyes and a cautious smile. "He looks thoughtful," James observed. "Too thoughtful sometimes," Olivia sighed. "He worries about things kids his age shouldn't have to worry about." James nodded in understanding. "Emma's the same way. I think losing a parent does that to them. Makes them aware of how fragile everything is." "Noah hasn't lost a parent," Olivia clarified. "His father chose not to be involved from the beginning. Sometimes I think that's its own kind of loss." The conversation paused as their desserts arrived, tiramisu for James, cannoli for Olivia. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the unexpected depth of their connection. "Can I ask you something personal?" Olivia finally said. James nodded, setting down his fork. "How do you do it? Balance everything? Work, parenting, and still have time to—" "I don't know, be a person?" It was a question James had asked himself countless times. "Honestly? Some days I don't. Some days it's all I can do to make sure Emma is fed and homework is done before we both collapse into bed. Other days are better. I've learned to lower my standards for what constitutes a successful day." Olivia laughed softly. "That sounds familiar. My house is a disaster half the time, and I've definitely sent Noah to school with mismatched socks more than once." "Emma went through a phase where she insisted on mismatched socks," James shared. "Called it her style statement." "Smart kid," Olivia said. "Making the necessity into a choice." James hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right. Emma had a gift for finding the bright side, even in their darkest moments. The evening continued, their conversation weaving between parenting challenges, work stories, and personal hopes. James found himself sharing things he hadn't voiced aloud in years, his fear of failing Emma, his guilt over feeling happy when Sarah couldn't be there to share in their daughter's life, his tentative dreams for the future. Olivia listened without judgment, offering her own vulnerabilities in return, her struggle to be both mother and father to Noah, her battle with her ex's parents who still sought custody despite their son's absence, her determination to show her son that a family could be complete with just the two of them. When the check came, they both reached for it. "Please, let me," James insisted. "I asked you out." "Actually, I gave you my number first," Olivia countered with a smile. "How about we split it?" It was such a small thing, but it felt significant, an acknowledgement of equality, of shared responsibility. James nodded, and they each contributed to the bill. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool and clear. Stars punctuated the darkness above, reminding James of Emma's space fascination. "I should get going," Olivia said, though she made no move to leave. "Noah's with my neighbor, and I promised I wouldn't be too late." "I understand," James replied. "Emma's with her aunt, but I like to be there when she wakes up." They stood facing each other, the streetlight casting a soft glow over Olivia's features. James felt a pull toward her, not just physical attraction but something deeper, recognition, perhaps. The recognition of someone who understood the weight he carried, because she carried a similar one. "I'd like to see you again," he said simply. Olivia's smile was warm. "I'd like that too. Maybe." James hesitated, then decided to be bold. "Maybe something with the kids? A park day or the children's museum? They might get along." The suggestion seemed to surprise Olivia, but pleasantly so. "You'd want to introduce Emma to us so soon? Is that rushing things?" James worried suddenly. "I don't have much experience with dating as a parent protocols." Olivia laughed. "Neither do I. But no, I don't think it's rushing. Actually, it's refreshing. Most men I've dated wanted to keep their dating life and their dad life completely separate." "That seems exhausting," James said honestly. "Emma is the biggest part of who I am. Keeping her separate from anything important in my life just doesn't make sense." Olivia's expression softened. "Noah is my world too. And yes, a park day sounds perfect. There's that new playground by the lake. Noah's been begging to try it. Emma mentioned that too. It's a date, then." James felt a flutter of anticipation, not just at seeing Olivia again but at the prospect of their children meeting, of worlds expanding rather than remaining in careful isolation. They exchanged a brief hug goodbye, a gesture that held promise without pressure. As James watched Olivia walk to her car, he felt lighter than he had in years. The weight of single parenthood hadn't diminished, but somehow, the prospect of sharing that weight, even just in conversation with someone who understood, made it easier to bear. Driving home, James reflected on the evening's unexpected turn. He'd gone into the date nervous about revealing his status as a widowed single father, only to discover that Olivia had been harboring similar concerns from the other side of the same coin. The symmetry felt right somehow, like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. When he arrived at Melissa's house to pick up Emma, he found his daughter fast asleep on the couch, Mr. Snuggles clutched to her chest, a half-eaten cookie still in her hand. Melissa was curled up in an armchair nearby, reading. "Hey," she whispered, setting down her book. "How was it?" James carefully extracted the cookie from Emma's grip before answering. "It was really good, actually." Melissa studied his face. "Yeah? You're glowing a bit, big brother." "I am not," James protested, but he could feel the smile he couldn't quite suppress. "Details." "I need details," Melissa insisted, leading him to the kitchen where they could talk without waking Emma. James gave her the abbreviated version, ending with the revelation about Olivia being a single mom and their plans for a park day with the kids. Melissa's eyebrows shot up. "Wow. Meeting the kids already? That's a big step." "Too big?" James asked, suddenly uncertain. Melissa considered this. "No, I don't think so. Not for you too. You're both parents first. It makes sense you'd want to see how that whole dynamic works sooner rather than later." James nodded, relieved by her assessment. "That's what I thought. It just feels right." "Sarah would approve," Melissa said softly. She always said Emma needed siblings. The mention of Sarah and siblings in the same breath caught James off guard. He and Olivia had just met. It was far too soon to be thinking about blended families or more children. And yet, the thought didn't terrify him as it might have even a few months ago. "One step at a time," he said, more to himself than to Melissa. "Of course," she agreed. "But it's nice to see you looking forward again, instead of just getting through each day." James couldn't argue with that. For the first time in 3 years, he was genuinely excited about what tomorrow might bring. The park day was scheduled for the following weekend. James spent the intervening days in